Yes, YouTube, you join me back at the infamous desk, slightly different angle this time, but you would have seen this morning I will have, what did I show you? I would have showed you my morning walk, and I thought I like to take pictures on my morning walk. I'm a very wholesome guy when it comes to stuff like that. And then you would have seen meal one, or hashtag breakfast, which is just beef mince, rice, and some fruit, and some veg, obviously. But I've sat down, got some work done, and the topic of today's video is going to be how to gain 35 pounds of muscle and how I have done that. So the way this video is going to kind of work is there's going to be segments. So right now you join me for the first part, I'll give you some tips, and then I'm going to go train upper later. I'm going to record that session, and then I'm going to overlay it, and then over the top of that I'm then going to give you some more tips, and then at the end of the day I'll give you some more. So they're spread out throughout the video, and they're the three main parts, and then there'll be like a sort of wrap up conclusion at the end. But the first one that I'm going to give you is find your maintenance. Now it's so basic, I know, but just track your food for 10 to 14 days, as well as your steps and your cardio. Just make sure it is regimented, it's structured, and it's consistent, and then track your body weight alongside that and see how it moves over that 10 to 14 day period. If it is sticking, you found your maintenance, great. We don't need to spend any more time there. So now that we have established what our maintenance is, we can now move into a calorie surplus. Now you do not need a large calorie surplus to build muscle, but a calorie surplus is needed to maximize the amount of muscle that you build, contrary to what a lot of people would tell you nowadays. So the first tip is small calorie surplus and control the weight of gain. Anywhere between 0.5% to 1% of gained of body weight per week, or even like half a pound to a pound a week. But there might be some weeks where you don't need to see that scale weight increase. You know, if you've jumped up a pound and a half, and training performance is still absolutely flying, you don't necessarily need to increase food. You only need to increase food to fuel performance, fuel recovery, and to keep the scale weight trending upwards. As long as those three things are trending upwards, then you're absolutely fine. If you can recover and progress your sessions, and you're getting stronger in the gym, and alongside that your body weight is going up over time, not meaning every single day or even every single week, but over a 3-week period, a 2-week period, that body weight is trending up, then you're in a prime position to build muscle. And then the last one on food is the quality of food. I think it's something that is so neglected when it comes to some bodybuilders, especially at the start in the early years. I was guilty of this as well, just no veg, no fruit, just mince, rice and shit. But the quality of food certainly does matter. Now, you'll hear all the time, no, there's no such thing as bad food. Fuck off. Yes, there is such thing as bad food. You're telling me that 1,000 calories worth of chicken and 1,000 calories worth of, or even 1,000 calories worth of like 15% beef mince and 1,000 calories worth of 5% beef mince, you're telling me they're the same, you know, micronutrient breakdown and so on and so forth, or 1,000 calories of McDonald's versus 1,000 calories of a home cooked meal. Of course, McDonald's is fucking shit food. So food quality does matter. And yes, you know, energy balance is about calories in versus calories out. So that 1,000 calories of McDonald's, 1,000 calories of a home cooked meal, it's still 1,000 calories. But what it's doing internally and how it's actually going to make you feel are two completely separate things that I think a lot of people neglect. So if you can, stick to single ingredient foods and meal prep, and try and avoid, you know, stuff in your face with shit, because you're just going to ruin your digestion. And if you ruin your digestion, you can kiss goodbye to your gaining phase, because you're not going to be absorbing that food, you're not going to be partitioning it effectively. So yeah, food quality definitely does matter. General rule of thumb is just stick to single ingredient foods, and then later on in the bulk, when potentially appetite is reduced or food volume needs to be something that you need to think about, then you can start adding in things maybe like square bars and granola and cereal and stuff like that. And then potentially when you get further into the diet, you can think about adding in things like square bars and bagels, jam, honey and stuff like that. But for the most part, just try to stick to single ingredient foods. Even if it's just like honey, raisins, those are the things you're adding to reduce food volume. Dates is another good one. If you haven't tried dates, get on that. Yeah, food quality certainly does matter, and you should be trying to aim to have veg with every single meal, or fruit and veg with every single meal. And it's just going to help with the absorption of the carbohydrates alongside, you know, having fructose and glucose together actually helps with the absorption of it and the utilization. So you know, there is scientific backing behind it for all you science nerds out there. And an extra one as well, or an extra two, I guess, is keep expenditure in throughout your gaining phases. Do not take cardio out. Now, a lot of people view cardio as this tool for fat loss, and it is a tool for fat loss, but it's also just fucking great for your cardiovascular health. You know, there's no point training to failure in the gym and building muscle if you're just gonna fucking die because your heart isn't capable of, you know, sustaining itself. So keep cardio in. Doesn't have to be every day. If you want to do it every day, by all means do it. You know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes every day is not going to kill your bulk. You know, if anything, you can just eat more food. But there's a lot of benefits to having cardio in, and that is increased appetite, increased nutrient partitioning, and better digestion as well, because your body's actually moving. And then alongside that, having a step goal that you actually stick to. So don't just say, oh, I'm gonna do 10K steps a day and every day you're doing 6 or 7. No, if you only do 6 or 7, potentially bump that up to 8, depending on your lifestyle. But for most people, 8K is not unreasonable, even if you are working a desk job. For example, a lot of people will use their 9-10 hour desk job as an excuse for not getting 10K steps. 10K steps is about an hour and a half of walking. You have an hour, you know, you can get up at 20-30 minutes earlier before work, get a 20-minute walk in, that's 2,000. Then at lunch on your break at work, you have an hour. Let's say you spend 20 minutes eating, you can walk for 30 minutes, still have 10 minutes left. That's 5,000 steps. You only got 3,000 left to do in the day, and that's if you have not even moved for the rest of the day around your lunch and your first meal. Then, you know, you finish work, you know, you walk around the gym, you walk around the house, walk after, even go for a short walk after work before the gym, and then a short walk after your last meal before bed. You'll find it's very easy, but it's all about planning. But keep expenditure in. It's got so many benefits as the ones I've just mentioned, you know, just general well-being as well, you know, keeping steps at a good amount. For me, I aim for 10 to 12 every day, and anything less than that, I just feel like I'm being lazy, and it just doesn't make me feel good. So I always keep that in. Anyway, so I will leave you with those ones, and I'm gonna get back to some work, and you'll join me when I'm back from the gym and I'm speaking over the upper day that I've gone through, and I'll be going over how training plays a massive part in building muscle, which obviously it does, but I'll be breaking it down into some very easy digestible tips. And then at the end of the day, I'll be giving you some on about stress management, sleep, how that's important, why that's important, and how to manage it. Yes, people, so you join me back and you'll be seeing clips or raw footage of my upper day as I'm talking over. So moving on to the next most important part when it comes to building your 35 pounds of lean muscle, or however much you want to build, is your training. Now, training is the main dictator of what happens with your physique. If your training is subpar, or if you train like a cupcake, you're gonna look like a cupcake. If you train hard, you're gonna look fucking hard. No pause there. To start with, your training, meaning your program, your split, needs to be aligned to your needs. Now, for the majority of people out there, you do not need to be getting hyper specific with it. You just need a split that hits each body part at least 2 times a week with nice frequency, nice volume that you can recover from, and you enjoy. Enjoyability is probably the most important factor when it comes to your training. If you are not looking forward to the sessions and you don't enjoy the sessions, then you're not going to get the most out of them. Because think of it like school, you know, you're going to have some subjects that you like, some subjects that you don't like. You're probably going to try harder at the ones that you like, right? Same comes when it comes to training. If you've got movements in your plan that you don't enjoy, you're probably going to get on them and you're not going to be fucked. So therefore, your ability to push it close to failure is just not going to be there. Then that brings me on to the next most important point, which is take all of your working sets to failure. Failure means you cannot complete another full rep by yourself. A way you can judge this is film your sets and look at the concentric speed, meaning when the muscle's being shortened, look at the speed of that. So if you're doing a Smith machine press, it would be from going from the bottom position here to the press. If that concentric speed does not slow down involuntarily as the set goes on, then you are not approaching failure. If your rep 1 and rep 8 looks exactly the same or very similar speeds, then you are far away from failure. You should be able to see that concentric speed slow down as the contractile force diminishes as the set goes on. Then, once you've learned to take all of your sets to failure, the next most important thing is to standardize that form and then progress the stimulus to the muscle. You'll hear a lot of people say progressive overload, and yes, we do want to increase the weight or the reps or both that we are doing over a 3 to 6 week period, but not at the detriment of form, execution and setup. That should be standardized, and when you take those weight jumps or you add those reps shouldn't be looking different to how you were executing that movement 6 weeks ago. And again, this is the importance of recording your sets. If you feel like your form is potentially going a bit shit, then record your set and compare it to how it was looking maybe 6 weeks ago. Maybe you've got an extra 10 kilos on there, 5 kilos on there, whatever. If that rep looks the exact same, crack on. But if you see that what you're doing now compared to what you're doing 6 weeks ago, that work, that range of motion has gotten a lot shorter, that rep tempo, that rep speed has gotten a lot quicker going into the hole, you're bouncing out, then you probably need to reset that movement slightly and then re-nail the execution and then run it up from there. Your body does not know what weight is on the machine. All it knows is a progressive stimulus. All it knows is how hard or challenging that weight is. So just because you've reduced the weight doesn't mean that you're not building any muscle or you're not going to build any muscle, because it's the challenge placed upon the muscle that is actually going to build extra tissue. So we've covered how to manage your rate of gain and the food quality, the food sources. We've also covered the training. Now the last part to get onto is sleep and stress. Now these are two things that are going to play a huge role in your ability to build muscle and even lose fat. If you are trying to put food into a high stressed body, that food is going to be used primarily to bring that stress down as opposed to adding new tissue. So you want to try and limit the amount of stress that you're having. You know, obviously things happen in your life and stresses are inevitable, but how you deal with that is completely up to you. Now, just try and live a very stress-free life, as easy as it sounds, and don't be trying to like get into any arguments or seek out any sort of disputes or arguments or anything of that nature. Just try and be as relaxed as possible. Don't stress about like your logbook or your meals. Just understand what you need to do and get it done. Alongside that, your most important recovery tool alongside nutrition is going to be sleep. Now, optimizing your sleep is so important. And for the vast majority of people, it is so simple. You just need to give it a little bit of effort. So good sleep practice is going to bed and waking up at the same time every day. Now, obviously, if you work shifts and you're getting up and going to bed at different times of the day, it's not going to be possible. But what you can do is figure out what time you're going to go to bed for on an early shift and a late shift, what time you're going to get up at on a late shift, early shift, mid shift, whatever, and then stick to that. So yes, you won't have set bedtime Monday through Sunday, but you'll have set bedtimes on those shift days, and it means that you can structure your day around that a lot better. Plus it then means that you know what time you need to start winding down for. Now, once you've nailed down getting to bed and getting up at the same sort of times, then you want to look at your environment, your sleep environment. So making sure that your room is dark, free of any sort of light, no sound. If you can, make it nice and cool. So if you have to open a window slightly or buy a fan, studies have actually shown that around 18 degrees is probably the best for sleep quality. And then also in the lead up to bed, do things that are going to help you wind down. You know, don't be watching a really scary or high action movie or doing something really strenuous, you know, like doing all your meal prep right before. You know, have at least an hour before bed to wind down. And then alongside that, also wearing some blue light blockers just to block any of that blue light you'll be getting from screens on your phone, on your TV, from your laptop, whatever. And I would probably recommend putting these on around an hour and a half to 2 hours before bed, but play around with it, see how it works for you. Once you've got all that down, if you want to go that little bit further, you can look at supplementation for your sleep. However, I do want to say, don't look at supplementation until you have nailed all the basics. And obviously with any sort of supplements, make sure that it's not interfering with any sort of medical conditions that you have or anything like that. But for me personally, I find that 500 milligrams magnesium biglycinate half an hour before bed does me very nicely. But it's also been shown that ashwagandha as well, 500 milligrams alongside that, can help with sleep. But again, consult with your doctor. Don't take my word for it. This is not advice, that's just what I personally use. And yeah, that sort of does it for today's video. It's slightly different, more of like a lot of short clips put together. But if you did find it helpful, please let me know, leave a comment, subscribe, message me on Instagram, anything like that. And of course, I am an online coach, so I help people optimize all these aspects of their physique development journey. So if you are interested, link is in the bio. It will take you straight to my WhatsApp, and you can message me on there, or there's an inquiry form on Google Forms. Or if you really want to, you can just message me straight on Instagram, Josh Dandy, that's on all platforms. And yeah, I look forward to hearing from you soon, and any sort of comments or feedback you got from this, or potentially let me know in 6 months' time that you took what you learned in this video and you built a load of muscle. But until next time, thank you.